Hi, welcome to the Rose at Home channel. I'm Rose and I am so incredibly happy that you have decided to join me today while I talk about all of the things that I read in June. I completed 6 books in June. I really thought it was going to be more, but the last book was a chunker and it took me a little bit. I will tell you, I 5-starred half of them. And that's rare for me. I'm pretty generous with stars. I read to find the things that I like. And so some of them not so much, but I'm going to talk about all of those things today. The first thing I read in June was 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson, and this was a 5-star for me. I really enjoyed this. I read this for book club. It is a mysteries and thrillers book club. We meet every 3 months, and every time they kind of switch it up a little bit as far as the title, but it's always mysteries, thrillers, suspense things. This is great. If you like really unreliable narrators, if it's not gonna bother you to get to the end of the book and still not be 100% sure of what happened, because it could be one of 2 things. That's what the bulk of the discussion in book club was I don't want to do spoilers, but there's a lot of twists and turns, and there's a lot of wait, what? But it was still enjoyable. It was really well written. It was I'm pounding on the chair if you're hearing that, sorry. It was quite the ride to go on. And if you like mysteries, if you like kind of being in the dark, not as far as, it wasn't confusing, but there was a lot of how much do I trust this guy? How much do I trust my lead in this book? How much is what he's telling me true? How much is it true to him? How much is it true to us? Like, really good. So, very quickly, premise. There's a guy who, years ago, his boss asked him to start a blog for the bookstore that he worked at. And for his first post on this blog, he did a list of 8 perfect murders that were in literature. One of them was a play, I think, but for the most part, they were books, and they were murders that he thought were absolutely perfect. So FBI agent comes to him, it's years later, and says, I think someone is taking your list and killing people, and she asks him for help. And so there are parts of it that seem really far-fetched, but are they far-fetched because he's not being truthful? Or are they, like, it's a ride. It's a ride and a half. It's really enjoyable. I had a very good time. I'm definitely going to read more Peter Swanson in the future because I greatly enjoyed this. So if you like mysteries that are mysterious the whole way through, even after they're over, this is a book for you. The next one, and sorry guys, I've told you, I'm having issues with romance. I feel like maybe I need to make a video of like, what do I want in a romance, and let you guys recommend some for me. But yeah, Emily Henry's Happy Place. So I gave this 3 stars, and let me talk about premise and kind of basic things first, and then we'll get into why my rating is what it is. And then if you find any of that, if you like to go in blind and you want to skip ahead, I'm okay with that. Like, it's all right. The premise is that there is a couple that got together early in college, have been together for years, and they break up, but they don't tell their friend group. And every year their friend group goes on a vacation together. So they go on this vacation and decide that they're going to pretend to still be together so as not to upset their friend group. That's basically the premise. So, okay, I'm gonna put a timestamp down here if you don't want, I'm not gonna be super spoilery, but if you really prefer to go in blind, I'm probably gonna say some things that you would rather not know. So I'm gonna put a timestamp down here to go to the next book. But my issue with this, almost from the very beginning, all I hoped for was that this would end with the heroine by herself. The male love interest is a horrible human being. And again, this is, I get that some of this is kind of me. You guys know I have issues with other people behaving badly and it causing things in a relationship. I don't know if I explained that very well, but so what happens in this book, or what happens that leads to their breakup, is so she and her coworkers have a standing kind of meet for drinks and stuff, and the boyfriend, the now ex, tells her, like, you need to go, you need to make friends with the people that you work with, and you need to have people other than me in your life. So she starts attending these things. His father has passed, his mother needs help, so he goes to his parents, she goes out with her friends. One of them takes her home, gets her home safely, and at her doorstep, he kisses her without her consent. I find that to be problematic. But he kisses her without consent, and she does the right thing. She semi does the right thing. She says, hey, no, you can't do that. But then she mentions, like, I'm engaged. So I know we all do it. I've done it. I've even done the made up boyfriend to get guys to leave me alone, because that's kind of what we have to do in our society. But co-worker guy comes back with, well, he's not here, which pretty much tells you exactly what his intents are, and that this isn't just like a misunderstanding. He got that this wasn't the right thing to do, and he did it anyway, and I think she should have reported him. She doesn't, but she's so upset. She goes in the house and she calls her fiance and immediately tells him what happened. And instead of being the kind of person that you want in your life, who's like, oh my God, babe, I'm so sorry that happened. What do you need from me? How can I be here for you? I'm supportive, whatever you want to do about this. No, he dumps her immediately. And then everything of hers that he has, he ships it back to her. Not even regular shipping. It's like second day air. She gets it 2 days later. He doesn't deserve to have a girlfriend. If you go to the person who's in your life and it's like, hey, somebody did something to me without my consent. Somebody tried to shove their tongue in my mouth, and and they dump you. They don't deserve you. And he does, this whole book, he does not deserve her. And what I had hoped what was going to happen as I kept reading was that she would get to a place where she was comfortable with what happened, because she blamed herself a lot and that's the other thing. God, I just wanted to shake her. She blamed herself for him breaking up with her, that she wasn't good enough, that she wasn't lovable enough, that she made it too hard for him. And that's why he couldn't handle what happened to her. And I was like, made me so mad. So now I'm even like second guessing my 3 stars. But I really didn't want them. I wanted her to get to a place where she could understand that it wasn't her, that his dumping her was him. And if they even wanted to be cordial and somehow but that's fine. But I really did not want them to end up together. I wanted her to be strong on her own 2 feet, and I wanted her to go through a change, but I didn't want her to end up with him. But it's a romance, so I don't even think it's spoilery to say what ends up happening, because it's a romance and that's what always happens. But this would have been a better book had she been like, no, I didn't deserve that. And the fact that you don't get, I didn't deserve that you want to grow now, fine, but we're not picking up where we left off. I didn't deserve that. So yeah, maybe I need to do that video about romances and what I want. And what I absolutely don't want is there to be like sexual harassment at work that gets people together, sexual harassment from coworkers, like getting dumped over things that as a woman you have no control. And Emily Henry should know this. You have no control. Like, I guess she could have like punched the guy in the face or something, but like you don't do that, because they're generally speaking, they're going to be bigger, they're going to be stronger, and you do what you have to do. And remember, I'm engaged, and it wasn't even a lie. Remember, I'm engaged, and that the then fiance uses that as an excuse to break up with her is, oh my God, there was no redeeming him for me from that. And that, I think, is where my problem was. So I know some people love it, and yay for you. I'm glad that you could enjoy it. I have some hangups, and that is a huge one. And I really, in my imagination, she wises up and she still leaves this guy, and her life is so much better. Okay, so after that, the next thing I read was Diane Chamberlain's Big Lies in a Small Town. Someone had commented on the TBR video asking me to go ahead and make sure that this one got included, and I was very happy to do that. And it's really good. I gave it a 4 stars. It's a little slow at the beginning, And some of the twists I kind of expected, some came out of nowhere. But once it started picking up, it was really good. It was really strong. I very, very much enjoyed it. It is a dual timeline. The first timeline is a young woman in the 40s who was commissioned by the government to paint a mural in a post office in a small town. It is not a town she is from. And the second timeline is from a young woman who takes the blame for something that she did not do to protect a man, and he ends up completely dumping her, and she's left to kind of clean up his mess, but she is in jail for the thing that he should have been in jail for, but she says that it was her, not him. And so, but she's also an artist, and she gets commissioned, she gets taken out of jail and told so long as she can restore this mural, she doesn't have to serve the rest of her sentence. So we go back and forth, we learn, obviously there's going to be more connections between them than just the mural. We get to kind of see both of their lives and all of the things that happened to them, and it was really good. There were surprises, there were twists, there were turns. I enjoyed it. It wasn't quite that 5-star, oh wow, I'm gonna reread this soon and all of that. It wasn't quite there, but I'm really glad that I read it. I'm glad that I had it. I did greatly enjoy myself. Okay guys, so after that I had the book to read for the second book club, and this one is called Tea Parties and something, and it's basically books that deal with tea and coffee. And so the first book we read was TJ Klune's Under the Whispering Door, which is set in a kind of supernatural tea shop that is actually a way station for people crossing over after they die. And I had read this before. I had read it when it first came out. I reread The House in the Cerulean Sea and then went straight into this, and I think I gave it 3 stars. I was mad at it. I wanted Linus back. I wanted the kids. I wanted it to be that book kind of rewritten, and it's not. And so I didn't care for it the first time through. This time I picked it up and I was like, okay, we're gonna take that lens off. We're not looking for Linus, we're not looking for kids, we're gonna let this book be itself. We're gonna let this book stand for what it is. And I absolutely fell in love and now love it just about as much as The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's beautiful. So basically what happens in this book, there is an attorney who is really a terrible human being, and he dies of a heart attack. And he gets picked up by a reaper, her name is May, and she takes him to this way station where there's a door that you go through to go to the next step, but nobody forces you, nobody pushes you to go faster than you can go. You can take some time, kind of mentally process what's happened, and then move on. And so he's there, the ferryman who helps you to the door, his name is Hugo. His grandfather, who is a ghost, is still there. He has decided not to cross over because he wants to be there for Hugo. Also, his dog is still there as a ghost, and it's just the cutest thing. Their relationship is very, very slow burn. It does remain far more friends than anything else until of course, because one is a ghost and one is not. But it really is. TJ Klune can write a sentence. He can write a sentence like nobody's business. And he can write feelings without having to be all, ooh, sexist, like it doesn't have to be that. But I was able to really see those connections long before anything else happened. Like you could see the caring, and you could see Wallace really start to change. The book club discussion was pretty divided. There were some of us who really didn't care for it. There were some of us who loved it, some who loved it more than The House in the Cerulean Sea. So it's really is, it's not like everybody loves this one, but if you do love it, it really is beautiful. My advice, if you do love House in the Cerulean Sea, don't read it right after, and don't try to make everyone the characters, because I noticed that the people who were like, I didn't like it, and here was this character, and here was this character, and here was this character, and I was like, but they're not. There are writers who do that, Lucy Foley, but he didn't do that in here. these are their own people, and it really is. It's a beautiful story. I cried. It was my second time through, and I ended up near the end crying when I'm not even going to go there, but I very strongly advise it. I very strongly think that it is beautiful. Be emotionally prepared. It is very much, literally, it's about death. It is about that passing over and coming to terms with the end of your life and all of that. It's heavy, heavy, heavy in this book. So make sure you're in a mental place that you can deal with that. But if you are, just kind of go along for the ride and feel the feels and enjoy the characters. Okay. And then was probably, I don't know, Happy Place was pretty disappointing. And I know when I gave it 3, like, I'm really generous with stars, guys, but I gave this 2 stars. This was Mary Kay Andrews' The High Tide Club. I read it because of the cover. I wanted something awesomely beachy and all of that, and it wasn't. So I think you kind of need to be my age to get these references, but the first half of this book is like, it's like she tried to take Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe and Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood and merge them into one book. If you're like, oh, I love those 2 books, reread those. This isn't to that level of those. You don't care as much. It's just not possible to get quite as invested. She works very hard to make that main character of the old woman very unlikable to the furthest degree, but then we're supposed to reconcile her at a younger age when she's not such a terrible human being, and it's too much of a juxtaposition. So her characterization doesn't make sense. It seems almost manipulative. Not even almost. It just seems manipulative. At about halfway through, it actually becomes a mystery, and I was like, oh, wait, no, I might start really enjoying this. It did get better. There is a huge event that happens right about in the middle, and the book completely changes focus, and I wish the second half had been its own book. That would have been, it still wouldn't have been a full 5 stars, but it would have been a much higher star rating than what this is. And yet, I had guessed pretty early into that second half what had happened and who had done it, and I was absolutely right. And I kind of don't like that. I like for my amateur detectives to be as smart as me. I don't like the foreshadowing and the clues to be that they had like neon signs with little hands pointing down, clue, clue. And I was like, anyway, I left out the premise. So the premise here is there is a woman who is like almost 100 years old, and she owns this huge house on this, she pretty much owns an island except for one tiny part. And it's got this huge dilapidated kind of mansion on it. And she's got tons of money, but hasn't been spending it keeping the house up. So the state wants to condemn the house and take the whole, it's in Georgia, take the whole island as eminent domain and turn it into a state park. And so she hires an attorney to come in and help her keep the state from taking her stuff, put together her will so that it goes to the descendants of her friends who were part of what's called the High Tide Club, where basically they got together whenever they were around each other when it was a full moon and went skinny dipping, and that's the High Tide. Sorry, I don't think it's really spoilery. It's just the High Tide Club is kind of nothing. They met like 3 or 4 times and that was it. They were just friends. That's basically the premise. The 99-year-old woman is absolutely horrific and bears no resemblance to the younger self of herself in the book. And the things that she says that are horrific don't seem organically originated. It seems like, I need to make sure people think she's unlikable, so I'm gonna have her say X, Y, and Z. And it just didn't fly. It really didn't fly. It didn't even make me wanna reread Yaya's or Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, which is a wonderful book. If you've only seen the movie, and I know that's even really old too, but read the book. The book is really good. But it it just seemed like it wanted to be in that club, not the high tide club, and it's not there. And I spent the second half of this month reading one thing because it was a chunker, but I was so excited to read it, and I am so excited to talk about it now. Look how big it is. But I have read The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty, and absolutely 5 stars. Best thing I read this month. One of the top things I've read this year. I loved this. I loved this. So this is about a woman who is approximately my age, maybe a little bit younger, but she's a mom. She's been retired for a decade to raise her child, but she was one of the most fearsome pirate captains that the world that she lives in has ever known. And so someone shows up at her door and talks her into taking one last job to help her out, and she goes back onto the seas, and so many hijinks ensue, and at various places she's like, no, I'm getting out of this, and every time she does, those stakes keep ratcheting up, and she can't go anywhere, and it's so good. There's so much. I don't want to do spoilers, but there's so much that happens. It really is a full-on adventure, and I love that her call to adventure came way down, like she's not like a teenager like so many kind of fantasy novels are, where it's a teenager called to adventure and you're young and all of this. Like, she's older, she's got a bad knee, I have a bad knee, she's like all of this stuff, and she still gets her chance to go on adventures, even though some of them are terrifying and she really didn't want to be there. She still has that. She still gets to have that in her life, and it's the first in a series. I'm absolutely positively getting all of them, and I hope I can get covers this pretty for the rest of the series, because I'm absolutely going to read it. I so with no reservation recommend, especially if you are an older woman, because you are going to be able to just latch on to Amina and feel like you're out there on the high seas dealing with all of this and getting to have your own adventures, and realizing, like, just because you're older, just because you have kids, it doesn't mean you can't still have an adventurous life. And I love all of that. I just can't say enough. So absolutely favorite book of the month. Probably one of, if not my favorite book so far this year. Absolutely madly in love with this. Read it. Read it. It's totally worth it. Read it. Okay, so that is everything that I read this month. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way until the end. I hope that you'll stick around. I hope that you will subscribe. I have already picked up more books for a July book haul, and that's going to be coming near the end of the month, but I can't wait to get to talk to you about them. So please subscribe so you get to see that video, and I hope you watch some of my older videos. I'm going to have one pinned here or here or here somewhere, so I think there's going to be a subscribe and there's going to be a watch another video, and I hope you do both, and I hope to see you again. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic week, and I hope you get to read some really amazing books, especially